Okay, hello, Algebra 2 students. This is Eric Myers again, and I am here to explain to you how to add, or in this case, subtract a rational function that has uncommon or their denominators aren't the same. So in this case, I have 4x over x squared minus 1 minus 4 over x minus 1. Just like we would do with a fraction, two fractions that did not have the same denominator, we're going to have to find the same denominator. So I always like to start with real numbers because most students understand how real numbers work, and then we'll use that concept to explain how the rational functions work. So if I have 3/4 and I want to add that to, say, 1/6, they do not have a common denominator, so we have to find a common denominator. Now, they share a factor in common. They share 2 in common. So if I factored 4, I get 2 and 2. If I factored 6, I get 2 and 3. So you can see they both share a 2 in common, but they don't share a 2 and a 3 in common. So we take the one that they do share in common times the 2 they don't share in common, multiply them together, and we get 12. So the lowest common multiple, or what we're going to turn the denominators into, is 12. So to turn it into 12, we have to multiply 4 by 3 over 3. And I want to change colors here so that we can clearly see what I'm doing. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. So 9/12 is equivalent or the same value as 3/4. Now I'm going to change colors here. To get this to 12, I have to multiply this by 2 over 2. Remember, we are literally multiplying by the number 1. And when you multiply by 1, you're not changing the value. But what you are doing is getting those denominators to be the same. So they're equivalent fractions. So now we have 2/12. So now we have 9/12 plus 2/12, and we can just simply add now. So I'm going to go back to the blue. Adding 9/12 to 2/12, we get 11/12, and that's the answer. So if you have 3/4 and you're adding 1/6, the answer is going to be 11/12. You can always check that via your calculator by putting into your calculator 3/4 or 3 divided by 4, and you'll get 0.75. If you do 1/6, it is approximately 0.7. It's really close to 1.7. If I remember correctly, it's 0.16666 going on forever. We're going to round up. So if we add those two together, we get 0.92, which is really, really close to what 11/12 is. If you put that into your calculator, you'll get really, really close to 0.92. So I just want to do that illustration once again to refresh your memory how we get a common denominator when we're dealing with real numbers. We're going to do essentially the same thing here. We need to factor these just like we factored the 3/4 and 1/6. We're only going to factor the denominator. That's all we factored over there. So we recognize this is a special case, x squared. This is the difference of cubes. The difference of squares, because x squared is a squared, -1 is a squared. And that's going to be x. Oops. My brain is working faster than my pen. So I can factor x squared minus 1 into x plus 1 and x minus 1. Okay, now notice that we have an x minus 1 here, so that is going to be in common. So they share that in common. So I do not have to multiply the first fraction by anything because it already shares this x -1, x minus 1 in common. But I am going to have to multiply the second denominator by x plus 1 because they don't share that in common. So I pick one, they share that in common, they don't share that in common. So all I have to do is multiply this one by x plus 1. And if I do the bottom, I have to do the top because that's the equivalent of saying 1. And when I do that, I get 4x, and I'm going to combine these together, minus 4x minus 4, because I'm distributing this 4 to everybody in the parentheses. And when I multiply these together, I get x squared minus 1. This is the equivalent of x squared minus 1. Once again, it's that special case binomial where if you multiply those together, your middle terms fall out because you get a minus x and a plus x. So minus x and plus x is equals 0x. So all you have is x squared minus 1. Okay, once I do that, notice that I have a common term, opposite terms, I should say. Remember, our denominator is x squared minus 1. So my final answer, since that's 0, is going to be negative 4 all divided by x squared minus 1. Now, I know this is a little confusing to many of you, so I'd like to do a second problem. Hopefully that will help clarify what we're trying to do. So the next problem we're going to try to do is y minus 1 all divided by 3y plus 15. And we want to subtract away y plus 3 all over 5y plus 25. Okay, once again, we're going to have to factor these. So notice that I can factor this into 3. Oops. Sometimes when I have that ink to shape, it doesn't do what I want it to do. So there we go. I got my 3 times y plus 5. And look, when I factor this one, I get 5y plus 5. Notice that they share this in common. So all I need to do is multiply one of the fractions by 5 and the other fraction by 3. Which ones do I do? Okay, so it doesn't share this 3 in common. So I'm going to multiply that 3 by this one. It doesn't share this 5 in common, so I'm going to multiply this one times 5. So what do I get over here? I get 5y minus, oops, almost forgot my y, minus 5. And this is all going to be over. Remember, I multiplied the first fraction by 5, the top, so I have to do the bottom by 5 also. So I get 15y plus 5. Now the second one, I'm going to move my screen over a little bit so that we can see what I'm doing here, get a little bit more space. I'm going to multiply. Now, can't forget that negative sign out front here. So that is going to be, so I'm going to extend out my fraction bar. This is a negative y times 3, so it's minus 3y. And I notice right here, I'm going to clean this up. It looks like it's that y was I put it to the negative 5. I have this 5 going a little high too, so I don't want to have any confusion here. So I'll take that away. There we go. Much better. So I have negative y times 3, negative 3 times positive 3. So that's going to be negative 9. Now I can combine like terms. I have a 5y and a minus 3y, so that's 2y. I have a negative 5 and a negative 9, that's negative 14. And it's all going to be divided by 15y plus 5. I think the important thing to remember here is that what we're trying to do is get a common denominator. And when I factor each denominator, I'm looking for what's in common. What was in common? Y plus 5. What wasn't in common? The second fraction had a 5 as a factor. The first fraction had a 3. So I multiply the second fraction by that 3 over 3. I multiply the first fraction by 5 over 5. When I do that, I get this 3 times 5 gives me 15. I still have the y plus 5 because it was in common to both. But then I have to multiply the numerator by that 5. That gave me 5y minus 5. I have to multiply this numerator by 3. That gave me negative 3y minus 9. Once I had the numerators multiplied through by that common factor that I found, I then combine like terms because my denominators were the same. I really hope that helps. If you need more help on adding, subtracting rational functions with different denominators, please come to office hours and we can discuss a little bit more. We'll also talk about it in class. Have a great day, and we'll see you back in class.